Didai lai lai lai, I lai lai lai, I lai I lai, I alai 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 lai, alai 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 lai, I alai 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 alai, I lai lai, I lai lai lai, I. Oh, there's a siren. I forgot there's a siren. Oh, right. Okay. So, for anybody that's watching and that's not in Israel, it's a Yom HaZikaron, which is Memorial Day. And so, there's a siren at night, a siren at day. And I guess that's the end of the Nigun. I'm starting the class already. I'll share an interesting story, a personal story. When I first moved here and I married Noga, so we would hang out with her Israeli friends. And on Yom HaZikaron, it was like this very heavy day. I remember, because they were all in the army, and they all had friends that were killed or injured. Oh, I forgot to put this on Do Not Disturb. And I remember seeing it as an immigrant and thinking, wow, I don't really relate to what they're experiencing. At that time, I was in the army, and even when I was in the army, nobody died when I was in the army. I never saw any war or anything like that. But now I think everybody, after October 7th, everybody, at least here, feels a connection with the war. Even, I'm assuming, Haredim that wouldn't publicly acknowledge the state, but definitely feel a sense of unity with the Jewish people here. So, Yom HaZikaron, can I say, in America, it's a day of sales, Memorial Day. The big sales are on Memorial Day. Here, there are no sales. It's a serious day of mourning. V'ezrat Hashem, can I say, Mashiach is welcome to come. We're waiting for him. In the meantime, Hashem, keep the soldiers safe and successful. V'ezrat Hashem. So we're continuing in Likutey Moharan, lesson Yud Bet, section 2. We're on Ot Bet, right in the middle there. Va'afilu ba'averot udvarim ra'im. You see where it is? Chas v'shalom. That's what it says. Chas v'shalom. Not that I said. You see where it is. Chas v'shalom. There's a lot of the main text in what we're going to learn today. V'ezrat Hashem. So this is the famous lesson called Ayeh Zahav Hashem Alechem. Famous lesson called Ayeh, Ayeh Makom Kabodo. Hashem, where are you? You see what it is, or want me to show you? It's in the middle somewhere, right after Bet. Says V'afilo ba'averot u'dvarim ra'im chas v'shalom shasham ein kabodo yitbarach. So, what we're talking about is that he has this main concept here. Tachlit, Yerida, Aliyah. I don't know if that's the exact word that he uses, but we'll come across it very soon. That here it is. Ha-Yerida i Tachlit Aliyah. That's the other way around. הנפילה והירידה היא תכלית העלייה. So the fact that what is the purpose of falling down? It's for getting up. And that's where a lot of people get confused. They think, oh, Hashem just wants to knock me down. Hashem wants to knock you down in order to get you up. And sometimes it's not so direct. So a person could say, okay, I lost 10,000 shekels, so that's in order for Hashem to give me 20,000 shekels, right? Doesn't that make sense? No, not necessarily. It's things are not as straightforward as that, and if they were, I think we wouldn't have so much free will, and life wouldn't be so challenging. Even though I know life can be really, really challenging, and sometimes too challenging at times. And so what Rabbi Nachman says is you have to remember this lesson, and when you fall down, so I quoted in the past, Les Brown is his name. He's a black guy, and Noga calls him More Brown, which is something that you could say in Israel, but in America you'd be put in prison, or maybe, I don't know, maybe another Trump's president, you wouldn't, I don't know. Motivational speaker, I don't know how old he is, if he's still doing it, but we can find his stuff online. Very talented speaker, and he has this line, when you fall down, make sure you fall down on your back, because if you can look up, you can get up. That's what he says. It's kind of a cheesy line, but it has a point, and in a sense, that's what Rabbi Nachman is saying. That when you fall down, don't think the falling down is the purpose. The falling down is in order for you to get back up. So that's the general idea of where we are. This is the introduction to where the text starts. In order to clarify that the going down is in order to go up, he brought that everything was created for Hashem's kavod. Kavod is not honor or glory in the way that we know what kavod is. Somebody that is highly respected, that person gets a lot of kavod. Hashem's kavod is revealing Hashem's presence in the world. And since Hashem's presence fills the whole world, then it would follow that in the deep and dark and disgusting places of the world, Hashem's light would also be revealed there. And so then it would follow that if a person ends up, here he calls it, where is it? Nefilat berurei kavod. So when a person is falling down, then they would be able to purify and clarify and elevate the honor of Hashem. And a person could take this very far. They could say, well, I learned in this lesson with this guy online, and he said, the further I go down, the higher I can go up, so I'm going to get addicted to this, and I'm going to get addicted to that, and I'm going to go to this strip club, and I'm going to become an alcoholic, and I'm going to gamble everything away, and I don't know. And those are the things I can think of. Maybe there's worse things in life, and I just haven't thought of them yet. And so I'm going to do that in order to elevate them. So he says, nope, don't make that mistake, because it's true that those things exist, and they can only exist with Hashem's light there, but you're not going to find His light in those places, because those places are created with a hidden light, with a light that, yes, of course, nothing can exist without Hashem wanting it to exist, but you're not going to find holiness in those places. That's what he's going to say in this section here. Ulam lichora apasuk uchvodi leacher lo eten soter zot. So if we know that Hashem's light is revealed everywhere, then wouldn't Hashem's light be revealed in all of those things that I described before? But we know that Hashem's light doesn't go into those places, and that seems like a contradiction. Because it would appear that Hashem's light doesn't go into the strip club, for example. Kavod sham hu kavod shelo sheba me'ma'amar satum. The glory or the light of Hashem that's revealed in those places is coming from hidden or concealed speech. Because we know that Hashem is creating the world through his speech. And that speech is speech that, I guess, isn't clear. You're not going to find Hashem's light there. Now, I'll just add a caveat that you can find Hashem's light in those places, but only when you realize that you're in that place and you want to get out of that place and you cry out to Hashem, Ayeh makom kavodo. Hashem, I'm not going to find you here in the strip club. How do I get out of this place? The second a person says, how do I get out of this place? They've now turned the downfall into an ascent. And that's the twist. And that's why he says, you have to say, Ayeh makom kavodo. You can say whatever words you want. You have to say, Hashem, where are you? So we know all kinds of stories of people, not just Jews, all kinds of people that have reached these very dark, broken places, and they pull themselves out from one thing or another. Philosophy, or they were inspired by somebody, or they just had a thought or a memory, or who knows what. That's basically what he's talking about. But now he's going to clarify why we don't find Hashem's light in those places. So now we're on the text. ואפילו בעבירות ודברים רעים, כגון עבודה זרה, חס ושלום, and even in transgressions or evil things, such as idol worship, God forbid, ששם אין כבודו יתברך, where Hashem's light is not revealed there, בבחינת הכתוב בקדוש ברוך הוא, as is written about Hashem in Yeshayahu, וכבודי לאחר לא ייתן. I'm not going to reveal my light in those other places. שיש גבול ומחיצה לכבוד שלא יתפשט לשם. There's a limit and there's a division to how far Hashem's light is going to be revealed. And even though those places are sustained by Hashem's light, you're not going to find Hashem's light there. ואף על פי שמלוא כל הארץ כבודו, and even though Hashem's light fills the whole world, עם כל זה יש גבול שמגיע למקומות ענן. There's a limit. Hashem is not going to put his light in the drug house or the strip club. שלא יצא לשם בבחינת. A person shouldn't go to those places and think that he's going to find Hashem's light there because וכבודי לאחר לא ייתן כנ"ל. Because Hashem is not going to reveal his light in those places. ויש גבול לכל כבוד וכבוד. And there's a limit to where Hashem's light is going to be revealed. שמלובש בכל מאמר ומאמר מעשרה מאמרות כנ"ל. That's enclosed in every single one of the utterances, every word that Hashem is speaking from the 10 speeches, the 10 utterances that he says all the time. שלא יתפשט למקומות החיצוניים כנ"ל, Hashem's light is not going to be revealed in those external places, as mentioned above. היינו, that is to say, שלא יתגלה שם כבוד השם, כי הם הפך כבוד השם. Hashem's light is not going to be revealed in those places because those places are the opposite of Hashem's light. אבל באמת גם שם יש כבוד השם בהסתר והלם גדול ומכסה כמו שיבאר. But even though Hashem's light is not going to be revealed in those places, Hashem's light is still there, and it can be revealed, but it's hidden, so a person has to look for it in order to find it, but they shouldn't expect to find it there. אבל דע, שלום עליכם to רוויה. אבל דע, but you should know, כי אף על פי כן, nonetheless, בוודאי, גם הם מקבלים חיות ממנו יתברך. So even though those places, you're not going to find holiness there, Hashem's light is still shining into those places. It's still being sustained by those places. As it's written, כבר גילו לנו חכמינו זכרונם לברכה, our sages' lesson memory already revealed to us, שבכל דברים גשמיים, that in every physical object, בכל לשונות העקום, in all of the languages of the non-Jews of the world, יכול למצוא שם אלוקות. You can find godliness there. So when somebody, all the great Buddhist masters in America were former Jews, of course. The famous joke of the grandmother that climbs up the mountain in order to talk with the guru, and they say, you only get to say 3 words. Or was it? Yeah, it's 3 words. You only get to say 3 words to the guru. So she says, no problem, I know exactly what to say. She gets finally to the guru, he's sitting there with his legs crossed, his arms crossed, and all these thousands of people are waiting. She says, Sheldon, come home. So because of that joke, my wife will send me a text message at 10 o'clock at night, Sheldon, come home. Or she'll call me Sheldon. So why are the Jews discovering spirituality in places that are not Judaism? Because there is spirituality there. So you can just ask the simple question. Well, it's much easier to be a Christian than it is to be a Jew. So why bother with all the Torah and mitzvot if there's spirituality in Christianity? Is that what you're telling me? There's spirituality in all these things, right? That's what Rabbi Nachman just said. And the answer is, yes, there's spirituality in all those things, but you're a Jew, and you can go much higher than a Christian. And that's what the Alter Rebbe talks about when he says that the Jewish neshama is different than the non-Jewish neshama in the Tanya. Some people have a very difficult time understanding this. But it simply means that when you're a Jew, your potential to reach a higher spiritual place is greater than a non-Jew. The non-Jew can reach the highest spiritual place and they can reach, let's take the Pope that just died, okay? Let's assume that he reached the highest spiritual place that a Catholic can reach, which is what the Catholics hope that he's doing, right? Because he's God's messenger on earth. I don't know if he did or not, but if we compare him, Lahavdil, to the Baal Shem Tov or the Lubavitcher Rebbe, we know that these guys were on such a much higher spiritual level than the Pope. Even the little fingernail of the Pope didn't touch the Baal Shem Tov. And that's the point. That even though there is spirituality in all those places, for you, there's much higher spirituality. And in order for you to reach that place, you have to do it in the framework of Torah and mitzvot. So then you can ask the question, why Torah and mitzvot? Because a mitzvah is the bridge between Hashem and us. That's how we create the connection between us and Hashem. And it's not a mystery. Hashem gave us the Torah. And Hashem said, I'm going to just tell you everything. Here's how you connect with me. Here's how you grow. Here's how you reach the spiritual place that the ultimate that you can reach. You have to do it through mitzvot. The only way you can do mitzvot is by learning about them. That's why people study Torah. The Chassidus that we're learning is already beyond the mitzvot. It's in trying to add salt and flavor to the mitzvot. You know how to do everything, but how do you stop yourself from falling down? How do you serve Hashem with joy? But first you have to have the basis of how to do these things. So there's spirituality in all of the languages and all of the religions. There's spirituality in all those places. But for a Jew, there's more to be found in Judaism. Ki below alukut, if there wasn't godliness in those places, ein lehem shum chiyut v'kiyum kolal. They couldn't exist at all. K'mo shekatuv v'ata mechet kulam. As it's written in Nehemiah, that you sustain everything. Not just everyone, everything. Levad chiyut v'alukut hazeh heim betzimtzum gadol ve'bemiut. Ubemiut. So even though Hashem is sustaining the Pope, for example, it's still in a very contracted and small way. Just to keep the person around and to give them life and nothing more. כי אין שום מציאות בעולם שיכולה להיברא או להתקיים ברגע אחד מבלי שהשם יתברך ייתן בה כוח וחיות. Nothing can exist in this world, even for 1 second, without Hashem deciding to put his life force into that thing so that it will exist. So, obviously, even Hamas is supported, is created, and has Hashem's light sustaining it. You're not going to find spirituality, for sure not for a Jew, in an evil place like a Hamas dungeon. But the reason that it exists is because Hashem puts his light in it. ואפילו מקומות המטונפים או בתי עבודה זרה צריכים גם כן לקבל חיות ממנו יתברך. And even in disgusting places, in temples of idol worship, Hashem has to give his life force in order for those things to exist. שגם שם הם נבראו במאמר Hashem. That even those places were created with Hashem's speech. V'kivan sheshoresh kol ma'amar hu kavod, and since the root of everything that Hashem is saying is kavod, it says kavod in quotes, really what it means is that Hashem's light is being revealed. And in the same sense, when we speak, it's the same thing. I have thoughts in my head. I'm trying to express them through the words that are coming out of my mouth. It's not the same as the thoughts. Many times I have things that I think, but I can't find the words to say them. So even when Hashem takes his thoughts, as it were, and contracts them down into speech, that is the tzimtzum, that's a constriction as well. Contraction, constriction. Al kochacha shegam sham yesh kvod Hashem. So even in those places of tinofet, of disgusting places and idol worship places, there's still Hashem's light is sustaining it. Ach da shehem mekablim mebchinat ma'amar satum. But they're receiving it through a hidden speech, hidden utterance. Shehu bereshit ma'amar satum. This is bereshit, this is creation, but it's creation through a hidden speech, not a clear speech. So I guess in a sense you could say, if somebody were to speak, so I'm speaking, but I'm not speaking in a clear way, and you can't get it. But when Hashem speaks like that, Hashem is creating, but Hashem is creating in a way that his light is not revealed. I have a daughter that when she washes for bread, she does that. And she starts saying, bring this out. Like, isn't that talking? No, I'm talking. So she thinks that's ma'amar satum. She's speaking in a hidden way. Shehu kolen kol asara ma'amarot. That when Hashem is speaking, when Hashem created the world, and he created it with the 10 utterances, and includes all of them, including the hidden places. And everything receives its sustenance from there. This comes from the Sphira. Let's see if I still have it here. No, I don't have it in this volume. The Sphira of Keter. Keter, of course, we have it in this book. We have the Sphiras. They have it right here. How convenient. They put it in every volume. So we have Keter. Keter, of course, is on the top. And so everything is coming from the top and going down. So that's what he means. That all of these are Hashem's speech in a sense, and they're all coming from the top. Where were we? And Keter, Mekablim Shehu Bechinat Sfirat Keter, Harishona Me'eser Sfirot, the first of the 10 Sfirot. V'akavod Shel Ma'amar Satum, and the light that comes out of this hidden speech, Hu Satum V'Ne'alam B'Tachlit HaAstara, is totally and completely hidden in every possible way. Umisham Heim, and from there, Asitra Achra, the negative energy in the world, Mekablim Chiyut, receives its sustenance. Ki mebchinat hakavod v'ma'amarot mitgalim haynu beteta ma'amarot אי אפשר להם לקבל חיות משם מבחינת וכבודי לאחר לא ייתן. So he says, okay, Hashem is speaking, Hashem is giving life force to the whole world, Hashem is revealing his light in all kinds of ways, for example, in the lesson that we're learning now, but in a place of darkness and evil and disgustingness, Hashem's light, although it is sustaining it, it's not going to be revealed there. Rak mehamar satum comes from this hidden speech, which is hidden in the most ultimate way. Misham mekalvim chiyut, and nonetheless they receive their sustenance from that. This thing we can't understand, and we should not spend time thinking about it at all, because this is how Rabbi Nachman apparently met many people like this, that they would say, okay, I'm going to look for Hashem's light in the brothel, or the bar, or someplace else. And Rabbi Nachman said, no, you just have to take my word for it. You're not going to find Hashem's light there. But somebody could say, but I really need to know. Now this is how the Yetzer Hara works. The Yetzer Hara comes in all kinds of ways. One of them is in the way of a tzaddik. And the Yetzer Hara says, you want to be a real chassid of Rabbi Nachman? You have to prove it. Go to the strip club and prove to me that God's presence is not there. And the guy will go, and he'll say, why am I here? I'm not here, God forbid, for what I'm going to see. I'm here to prove that Hashem's light either can or can't be found here. And that's why he says, this is something you can't understand, and don't spend time thinking about it. I've also met people that get into these intellectual loops where they're trying to figure out, well, what does that mean? Well, what does that mean? What does that mean? And we know from many lessons in the Likutey Moharan that the way of serving Hashem is through simplicity, tzmimut upshitut, innocence and purity. And that's basically what he's saying. So now, not everybody can just let go. Some people, I'm not one of those people. I could just let go. But some people, they get caught in this loop and they have to understand, they have to understand, they have to understand. And so he's giving you the advice, try not to get there. If you do, good luck getting out. Hopefully you will. Follows that, of course, if Hashem's light is filling the whole world, even in those disgusting places and places of idol worship, they were also created, and they also are being created into existence all the time. And they receive their life force from Hashem's speech. And the root of everything is Hashem's light. But the light that's creating the sustenance of the evil energy is absolutely 100% hidden. And so on the outside, towards the outside, lo mitgale sham kavod Hashem klal. You're not going to find Hashem's light there at all. On the contrary, they're the complete opposite of Hashem's light being revealed. This is how Hashem established the world. He said, yes, I'm going to give light force to places that are evil, but I'm not going to reveal my light there. You're not going to find it revealed there. Those places Hashem's light is not going to be revealed. But nonetheless, Hashem's light is found there in the most hidden way. And so when a person, God forbid, falls into these types of places, that is, into these disgusting places, there Hashem's light is completely hidden and concealed. And so as a result of Hashem's light being hidden in those places, a person falls into doubts and to confusing thoughts and to thoughts where they shouldn't go, and a lot of them, because they don't see Hashem's light in that place. And these places bring a person to philosophy and to confusing thoughts and to heresy. And then a person begins to look at themselves. And a person says, look at how far away I am from Hashem's light. And then the person says, where is Hashem's light? So now this is the turning point. I'm thinking of a guy, I don't remember his last name, Bert was his first name. Simcha Bunim is named after the Rabbi Simcha Bunim. So this is a guy that was a Reform rabbi, had a big congregation, had a congregation in Manhattan, was a Reform rabbi for 40 years. And one day he shows up at Simchat Shlomo, which was Shalom's yeshiva, and now is continuing with somebody else. And Shalom says to me, this is Rabbi Bert, and I want you to invite him for Shabbos lunch. So he would do that a lot. Sometimes he would call me Friday afternoon. My friend, Rabbi so-and-so is here. I want you to have him for Shabbos lunch. So we would make room for Rabbi so-and-so to come to Shabbos lunch. Whatever he said, it was just like there were no obstacles. I was going to do whatever he said. So I invited this guy, Rabbi Bert, who was probably 70, in his 70s at the time, and he wanted to become a Baal Tshuva. But no yeshiva in Israel would accept him. I couldn't find any English-speaking yeshiva that would take him because he was an unrepentant Reform rabbi, and Shalom was the only one that would take him. And so he sat there. He would come for like 3 or 4 months, then go back to the States. Go back to the States. He came a few times, and then Shalom realized he needed to go further, so he sent him to Mayonot. And he became a Chabadnik. And then they sent him on the Chabad speaking tour. Yeah. You can find this story online. And I don't know, probably put out a book. And so he and I had many conversations because I grew up Reform, and already when I was in 17, 18, I decided to leave the Reform movement and start becoming a Baal Tshuva. And he had all kinds of questions, like as an older man and as a rabbi, I wanted to ask a younger person, this is probably 15 years ago, all these questions. And I remember one of the things he said was that he went to Zichron Moshe. Zichron Moshe, for anybody who doesn't know, I'm pointing in that direction, the phone's very narrow. In that direction is a minion factory. There's quite a few of them in Jerusalem. It's a minion factory. You go there, it's like, I remember growing up in America, they had pancakes 24/7. Like breakfast is served 24 hours a day. So mincha or shachrit is served until basically the sun sets. And then you can squeeze in mincha already after the sun set probably. And then arvit until 6 in the morning or something. And so he said he would sit there on a bench and just watch the minions for hours. And I said to him, why are you doing that? He said, I feel all the Kedusha coming out of this place. He said, after being in basically Tuma, in impurity for such a long time, I just sit there and absorb the Kedusha. So my mother watches every week, and she goes to a Reform temple, and I don't want her to think that I'm criticizing her and the way that she practices Judaism in any way. There's spirituality there as well. But for him, being a Reform rabbi at that point in his life was not a healthy place. For him, that was a dark place. And when he came and he sat amongst all these Jews davening all day long, he felt the holiness coming into there. And that, in a sense, when he had this turn, it was him saying, Ayeh makom kavodo, Hashem, where are you? I should tell you the rest of the story, at least as far as I knew. He eventually told his congregation, it's like people coming out of the closet. He came out of the closet and he said, I'm going to be an Orthodox Chabad Jew. And half the congregation wanted to kill him, and the other half followed him, which is quite amazing. I don't know where they are now, how it's going now, but it just shows you the power of somebody doing tshuva. So there's a whole big note here from Reb Nassim, and the note, I'm just going to summarize it. He says that in order for you to have this change, in order for you to find Hashem, you have to make a switch in your head. And instead of trying to justify everything and saying, well, Hashem exists everywhere, so why can't Hashem exist here as well? Hashem does exist there as well, but you're not going to come close to Hashem in a place that's not a positive place. And I had this thought now, I'm wondering if there are yeshivas that are maybe not a positive place. I bet there are, I don't know. If not the yeshiva itself, then for sure the yeshiva for certain people. So, like me in Ayeh Torah. I went to Ayeh Torah when I came here, I was probably 20. I lasted literally 4 hours in Ayeh Torah. That was 2 classes. That was so I can get the ticket so I could go to eat lunch. And then they kicked me out. And I was really disappointed because I was asking heretical questions, I was told. I thought, that's what we're supposed to do. Anyhow, it wasn't the right place for me. And then in the end, I never went to any yeshiva. That was my only yeshiva experience, 4 hours in Ayeh Torah. And maybe that's the best, maybe that because I didn't go there, I'm still a religious Jew, I don't know. Okay, so now he says, so a person is saying, I'm so far from Hashem, and he says, Ayeh makom kavodo, Hashem, where are you found? And מଁהר שרואה בעצמו שהוא רחוק מכבודו יתברך. A person says, look at how far I've gone from Hashem. And I've seen this as well. And I've seen people that become Baalei Tshuva, and you see they're really, really so far from Hashem. Especially when it comes in an external way, covered in tattoos and piercings and cursing and drinking and all kinds of things. And you see somebody and they're just like, I want to come close to Hashem. I really want to come close to Hashem. Like, wow. It's really amazing to see that when a person gets excited, it's something very special. And that turning point is when the person says, Hashem, where are you? And maybe it's even in the slightest, most curious way. I don't believe in anything. I don't believe in God. I don't believe in anything. But maybe something, I'm willing to ask the question, is there really God? Because a person fell into these terrible places, God forbid. And this is the main fixing that the person has to do. And this is their aliyah, this is their ascent. This is the meaning of the going down is for the purpose of going up. In Likutey Moharan, it's explained, somebody who wants to serve Hashem and reach the path of holiness and truth, מנסים אותו בבחינת זאת שנופל למקומות כאלו. Says really the only way that a person can come to truly serve Hashem is when a person is tested and they fall into these places. וכשמחזק את עצמו על פי הדרך של Ayeh הנ"ל, when a person strengthens themselves in a way of this lesson by saying, Hashem, where are you? אז יזכה שתהיה הירידה תכלית העלייה. That's when the descent is for the purpose of going up. אבל צריך להיות חזק מאוד מאוד בדעתו, but a person has to be very, very firm in their belief. שעיקר התחזקות הוא שידע חסרון דעת האנושי, שבאמת אין לנו שום שכל כלל. So a person has to be so strong in them wanting to reach a connection with Hashem that they should know that the fact that they don't know something, or I don't know, it's kind of hard to translate this. Ikar itchaskut, the main aspect of strengthening themselves, hu sheyeda chesron dat ha'enoshi, a person should know that the limited human intellect that they have, shebe'emet ein lanu shum sechel klal. The truth is, we don't know anything at all. Kamo shekatuv ki ber anochi meish. I guess it's a quote from Mishneh, that I'm a fool if I think that I know something. It's a very loose translation. Ve'anu mechuyavim lahashlich ulevatel sichleinu legamrei. We are obligated to cast off and to nullify our intellect completely. Rak la'amin be'divrei tzadikei hamet, only to listen to the words, the true words of the tzadikim. Ube'emet yesh chiyut elokut b'kol ha'mekomot ha'rechokim ma'od ma'od, afilu b'mekomot ha'metunafim v'chulei. Okay, he's going on and on, saying that in those places where a person falls, the truth is that you can be elevated to a very high place when you fall down to there, but only when you reach the place of realizing that you don't know anything. So he's essentially strengthening this idea of asking Ayeh makom kavodo. Where is that? I'm going to stop in just a second. Umuvar besfarim, and it's brought in the holy books. Klamar. I think we're going to stop there. That the descent can bring a person ultimately to the highest place. And we all know stories of this, of people that reached places where they were broken, and people that became Baalei Tshuva, from all kinds of crazy stories. It's only when you reach those places that a person can go up. So something that he mentioned here, that Rabbi Nachman mentioned here, it made me think of Reb Chaim of Yerushalayim, who unfortunately passed away. He passed away before I wrote my first book, so it must have been a long time ago. That was 10 years ago, or something like that. This guy, he just came out of nowhere, Haredi guy, very charismatic, and he called himself Reb Chaim of Yerushalayim. And before that, he was Reb Chaim of like Minnesota or something. I don't know, he's from Minneapolis, Minnesota, one of those northern states where nobody really goes. There were some Hasidic rabbis, like the Twersky family, that ended up in Milwaukee. So maybe it's from Milwaukee. He was from one of those families, and he became totally off the derech. Grew up Haredi, became totally not religious for many years. And then he had like, an aha moment, and he became a Baal Tshuva, and he became religious, and became Haredi again. And at some point, he moved to Jerusalem. And he ended up here in Nachlaot for a little while, and eventually ended up in the Old City. And he would have these gigantic meals on Shabbos, and he always had a little candy worm, like a gumi, on the table. There were always these candies on the table to start the meal, because he wanted everybody to start off with something sweet. And he was very popular, and he helped a lot of people become Bali Tshuva. And I had, like, there was a period, this happens quite a lot with me, that people end up at Mayanot, and then they connect with me for like a short amount of time. So we had like this, I don't know, maybe like a month or so, or maybe a few months where we were like, close. He was talking with me, wanted to ask me things. And he told me his story, and he said, I understand that Hashem made me not be religious so that I could be the person that I am today. And if I didn't go through that, I wouldn't be able to help all these other people become religious. And that's what he's saying in this lesson, that the purpose of the descent is for going back up. But only when a person realizes that, and they strengthen themselves, and they pull themselves out of it. So I guess maybe it's his yard side. I don't know. His memory should be for a blessing. Shevali and Gan Eden. He's a sweet guy. Okay, I'll tell you a very, very short story of the Baal Shem Tov. And I mentioned on the podcast, by the way, Shalom Aleichem to Yaakov Yisrael. I always mention the podcast when the Baal Shem Tov lived, so it's 1698 to 1760, and I should know it myself by now, by heart, 1698 to 1760. Because I want all the people listening to the podcast at least to know when was the first Rebbe, 1698 to 1760, the Baal Shem Tov. So there was this very smart Talmid Chacham, this young Torah scholar, that came to the Baal Shem Tov, ready to drill him on all kinds of smart and clever things in the Talmud and Halacha and all of this. And the Baal Shem Tov said, wait, before we start, let's go outside for a second. So he goes outside with the Baal Shem Tov, and he sees a water carrier. And the water carrier, they had like a pole, and they're carrying 2 buckets of water because there was no running water. And it's a very hard job. And the Baal Shem Tov goes over to him, he says, "Was machst du Yid? How are you doing?" He says, "Baruch Hashem, I get to carry this water and support my family with my parnasa." And the Baal Shem Tov turns to this brilliant scholar, and he says, "You should know that his Baruch Hashem is on the same level of your Torah learning." And the scholar is like, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "As far as Hashem is concerned, this man's simple faith and gratitude to Hashem is the equivalent of your sharpest mind, your sharpest Torah learning ever." And that's really the story. Very short and simple story. But it's such an important story that a person can get caught up and thinking, I am. And the Baal Shem Tov is saying, everybody is I am. Just because you were given a bigger brain, because you were given more money, you were given more fame, power, or whatever it is, doesn't make you any less than the person that simply says, thank you Hashem, and I'm grateful for what I have. So B'ezrat Hashem, we should be on that level all the time. I include myself in it. Yesher koach for everybody sticking around, especially the married couple that's here, and nobody over there. So we'll continue next week. B'ezrat Hashem, sei gesund.